Good evening, and I'd like to reconvene the regular meeting of the Brattleboro Selectboard for tonight, Tuesday, June 19th. The meeting has already been properly warned, and we know that because we entered into executive session at 6:08 p.m. First thing I would like to do is look for a motion to approve the minutes.
So
I actually had some adjustment to the minutes.
Excellent.
I'm wondering if I'd be able to send in. It's not like super, and maybe this is just a newbie question. But so on page 2 at the bottom, I know most of it's shorthand. My inquiry was about the impact of the program, especially on low-income families. And the other amendment, and I can offer to just type this and send it in, was on page 3, just my mentions of my concerns with doing doing the app. And my reasons were. So I can just type it in and send those in.
And coordinate that with you.
and then we'll put the minutes on again for the next meeting once we've got the document updated and ready for your approval.
Yes, perfect.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good.
What do we do with that?
So you'll just skip over that item.
So David's withdrawing his motion?
We're going to withdraw.
Yeah, that's right.
Or table motions.
So I'm going to defer chair's remarks for tonight, and that brings us right to manager's comments. Peter?
Thank you. I have 2 this evening. One is unequivocally great and exciting and happy. The other is a decidedly mixed blessing. The first is that the fire department has received a statewide award, a significant award. They've been recognized by the Vermont Department of Health as being the first responder service of the year. And we will, at a select board meeting upcoming soon, we'll have the Vermont Department of Health officials here to make the presentation to our fire department. It is an award that recognizes Vermont-based and licensed EMS organizations for their excellence in operations and service to their communities.
Excellent.
So congratulations to the fire department.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
The other item I have for this evening is we are happy for Rod Francis, but very sad for ourselves that this will be Rod's last select board meeting with us. He's got another couple of weeks as a town employee through the 6th of July, but he'll be moving on to the town of Norwich in Vermont, up the Connecticut River Valley, where he'll be in a similar position as Director of Planning and Zoning there, I believe. And it's a nice move for Rod professionally and being closer to his new home. For us, it means losing somebody who's been a really valuable member of our team for the last decade. Rod came in 2008, became our planning director in 2008, came from the Wyndham Regional Commission, but after vast experience in other communities and other states before coming to Brattleboro. He participated in several significant development projects and redevelopment projects on his watch during this decade, as well as, most notably, probably the recovery of the Brooks House and any number of different recovery projects and redevelopment projects after Tropical Storm Irene. 3 more recent things that Rod led and will leave a lasting legacy here in town on is overseeing the preparation of our new town plan, which actually won the award as recognized by the Vermont Planners Association as the Plan of the Year back in 2013. And coming out of that planning process, the rewrite of the town's zoning ordinance and the modernization of our land use regulations, which were adopted in 2016 as a form-based code, bringing us out of the 1970s and into the 20-teens. And finally, something that's been a little less visible, but every bit as important for us in terms of partnership with other governments and longer-term impact for the town. A lot of work in the last couple of years with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, both on brownfields-related work and broader community redevelopment opportunities. So thank you, Rod. We wish you the best. It truly is Norwich's gain being Brattleboro's loss, but we are grateful to have had the opportunity to work together for this long.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Norwich. Very good. Okay. Any select board comments or committee reports from David or Shanta?
Shanta's gonna,
So, as some of you may be aware, we have how do we enact being a compassionate town as one of our goals for 2018 through 2019. And there's a committee of people who've already been meeting around this and working on establishing goals and how do we actually live what we say we want to do in Brattleboro as a compassionate town. And so I'm happy to report that some information has been shared with me that they're going to be moving forward and doing some informational and educational forums coming up in the fall. And they're still working on some of the details of that. So you'll probably be hearing more updates about exactly what those will be and then how everyone will be able to participate. I don't know if you wanted to add more to that.
just that the idea was to have spiritual leaders of different churches or other religious organizations, spiritual organizations, talk about the role of compassion in their work. And then we thought, well, human resources people, social workers and people like that should, they would also probably, that would be a great opportunity. And the restorative justice community. And then we've realized, well, a group of artists just did a show around the theme of resistance. And what about a show around the theme of compassion? So it just started to spiral into a number of opportunities. So now it's just a matter of setting up the process and the venue and making it sort of a regular thing that people come to expect.
Great.
It's part of the listening and connecting goal, which the committee adopted last month.
Great. Okay. We are now at the part of the meeting where the select board invites members of the community to speak on a topic that they might have that is not on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody here tonight? Mr. DeGray? You know the drill.
Dick DeGray, Brattleboro. I have actually a couple of questions and on a topic I would like to talk about. And then I'd like to thank somebody, so I may take 5 or 10 minutes here. First of all, the first question I have for you, Peter, is could I have an update on the status of this building here in terms of the potential rental agreement with the state, if something's happening or not happening? As you know, when I served on the board, I was a strong proponent of us moving out of here unless the proposal that came forward with a tenant to occupy this huge space, and I don't believe that we should be occupying this space for roughly 22 people if we don't have other rental income. This is a huge, huge cost to the taxpayers, so if you could give me an update on that, please.
Sure. Yeah, we agree that we don't have the luxury of leaving the space vacant indefinitely, so we've been working on alternatives actually for filling the space in case it doesn't work out to have the state come in. We had announced back at around the town meeting time, I don't recall whether it was just before or just after, that the state was no longer interested in the amount of space that they had once shown interest in. So there was a time when we were talking about 10,000 square feet, and that would have been sufficient usage in the building and sufficient funding from the state to enable us to do a whole building renovation. What we're now working on with the state is a scaled down plan that we still expect would allow them to occupy as much or more square footage as what the police department left when it moved out of the building. But it would likely be a renovation on a more limited scale. And I should know something definitive to share with the board and then with the public, hopefully within another. It's hard to tell with the state, and the state, as you know, is in a tough spot right now in terms of its budget situation and some other distractions. But I would hope that if not within a month, certainly within 2, we should get to a point where we've kind of got a way forward one way or the other.
Thank you. Question 2 for you. 2 years ago, when I did my second stint on the board, we approved money for crosswalk lighting, and I haven't noticed any of those put in or any crosswalk improvements. Maybe there have been, but I certainly know
Sure.
that the crosswalk lights have been put in. It's a long period of time that has transpired. and
Right.
pass by, so could you let me know what's going on there?
Absolutely. There was a period of time when that had to be delayed because there was a patent dispute. And Steve, if you want to take a deeper dive than I'm able to describe to you, I think maybe offline is a better place to do that, but Steve can describe it better than I can. The gist of it is that there was a time when it was removed from the federal government's list of authorized devices for providing, safe signage and striping and so on. So it was no longer part of the standard treatments to provide for safe transportation for pedestrians and drivers interface. So it's now back. As of about 6 weeks ago, I think, it got back onto that list. And we actually are planning before the summer is out to install the RRFBs at 2 additional locations as previously authorized by the board.
Third subject matter, something you're certainly all versed at hearing about, and it is the panhandling situation downtown. It has jumped to another level, which I think is epidemic at this point. It has become so aggressive. It's not people standing there with signs, it's people without signs chasing you down the street and asking you for money. The cast of characters change every day. I certainly know a handful of them, but there's new people every day and new aggression every day. These people are not only asking you for money, but if you don't give them money, they're accosting you verbally. And that's having a huge impact downtown. None of you make your living downtown, but there's a lot of business people that do. They hear about it. And just because people don't come here and talk about it doesn't mean it's not happening. And I have seen it get progressively worse in the last several months that it's unbelievable. And I'm going, what's going on? Where do I turn to get help with this situation? It seems like the board and the administration, whatever you're doing is not working if you're doing anything at all, because it has really had an impact on people. And I'm here asking you, as not only a building owner, a business owner, but someone who spends a lot of time in the community and sees what happens to the people that are visiting our town, our residents, who really feel accosted. And that word of mouth is not something that you're going to change because they're going to talk about. I went to Brattleboro and I walked down the street and 7 or 8 people came after me asking me for money. And we say it's homeless people. We're giving homeless people a bad name. It's not homeless people. I'm having a young man work with me, helping me with the flowers. He was a panhandler. He has gotten himself straightened out. And I said, I'm more than happy to have you work with me. And I asked him if he was homeless. He said, no, I have other issues. And so I don't believe that this is a homeless issue. I believe that the majority of these people, now there might be a few, but the majority of these people who are on the street are addicted people. And I don't know how that task force is working out that you had talked about around budget time, getting people on the street with Gunny and his staff and the social worker. But whatever they're doing, it's not working. And whatever Groundworks is doing, they're limited. So I can't go, they're not doing anything, but whatever they're doing obviously is not having a big enough impact on the people on the street. So I'm asking you to put your heads together and say, we need to do something. We need to be a lot more aggressive than we are, because doing nothing is not an option. And it's really disappointing as a resident to see what's happening in my community and coming up and asking for help from the leaders of the community and having them not do anything. That's not a good position to be in my shoes. And so I hope you hear my plea, and I know I'm speaking for a lot of people. People that are somewhat nervous to come forward and speak up. I am not, which you well know. So I am making a plea to you to either make this an agenda item and say, listen, when we kicked the bar up, and it's jumped quite high. I know the wall has closed. I know that's something that you have been close to and visited. So all that group of people that was hanging around down there on Elliott Street, they're going to be moving back onto the street, and that's not a good thing for our community, especially our downtown community. On a happier note, I don't know if you want to respond to that, but on a happier note, I would like to thank Dan Yates at Brattleboro Savings and Loan, and Jack up at the Vermont Trust, Davidson. They both made generous donations for flowers up at the Creamery Bridge. The flowers downtown that people see are paid for through a special assessment to Downtown Alliance, which has a line item for flowers. So all the flowers you see downtown are paid for by the building owners. The flowers that I do up in West Brattleboro by the Creamery Bridge and Citizens Bridge, those are all donations from the public. I certainly appreciate that. And I wanted to thank them, those two organizations, for giving me a nice donation to add more flowers up there. I'd also like to thank the fire department, who helped me out Sunday morning in hanging some baskets down on Kyle Gilbert Bridge. Steve and his staff and Carol and her staff, whenever I need assistance, they are always there to help. So this isn't a one-man band, and I'm very appreciative of the help that I get from all the departments in town. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I actually want to piggyback on something he said about the panhandlers. I've often, it would be great to try to figure out, put our heads together, because I've been approached aggressively and I've not been sure what to do about it. And so it'd be very interesting to have that conversation.
Esler?
Could I say something too?
Yes, please do.
Oh, sorry, everybody.
That's all right.
My name is Esler Oreste. I'm a member of the community. And what is your name again? Sorry.
Mr. DeGray.
Mr. DeGray. I really like that you brought that point up, that homelessness, or I want to say houseless people, and they're struggling. It's a really emotional, topic for me. I might cry, but I don't know. I might just laugh. It's a really important time to have this conversation. We have people struggling in our streets in Brattleboro. And the question is, what do we do? It's very easy to say, whoa, there's all these visitors that come and they see Brattleboro and they leave thinking Brattleboro has people struggling. Yeah, that's tough. But also that's happening all over the United States. There's more poor people now than there's ever been. There's a big gap. I'm struggling. I don't know if some of you are struggling as well. And yeah, people can come and visit. But I think this town is not for the people that come visit and spend money. It's the people that live here. And we don't just want people to live, we want people to survive well, right? We want people to be well here in town. So when we have these conversations and we have homeless people, it's kind of dehumanizing, because how often do we sit down with these people and talk to them about their day, about why they're in this situation? I'm a filmmaker, I'm a journalist here in town, and I get to listen to these stories, And I think, Mr. DeGray, that we need to do that. We need to listen to these people. What is the main thing? We should, of course, listen to the business owners, the people that drive the economy, because we all want a good, healthy Brattleboro. But we want also the people that are struggling to live well. I want people to come to Brattleboro and not just think, well, they have good stores. Yes, and good food, yes. But also people that are happy because they're well fed, they're housed. Those are the issues that we need to focus on. Yes, the business owners, they're gonna be fine. But what about the rest of the people that are struggling? I think that's the focus we need to do. Who is who are we as a town? We need to put the people that are struggling first, right? The front line, people of color, people that are struggling, people that have systematically been oppressed for so long. It is time to not be acknowledging that and to focus on that healing. Because we're still on land that was sacred land, and we should treat it as such. I'm excited that as a town we can maybe have these conversations because they're really tough. They're really tough for all of us to like be here and talk about this. But we have to do that. We have to do that. We have to do that. And we need to do that as a community. Not just you, but all the organizations that are doing stuff around town. We need to all come together and have these tough conversations because it's super important. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you're all doing.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
So I have a reply. Okay, so,
Oh, wait, you have another.
where? Oh, I see.
Donna.
Sorry, I couldn't see Donna.
Hi, Donna Simons. I own a candle in the night. And I just want to follow up on both of these gentlemen's comments. I wasn't planning to, but I think that it would be in my best interest and in our best interest. What I want to say to you is that I think that we are a generous town. I think when you talk about the upcoming land trust groundworks collaborative project that's about to open for the homeless, I think there are lots of people and lots of organizations who are working to make lives better for those that don't have as much. I want to say, though, that I think what Dick DeGray was talking about is the aggressive panhandling. We are not talking about the people who say, do you have any spare change? And you say, no, I don't, and they move on. We're talking about the people that pursue us, the people that are aggressive, and there are more and more of them. I find them camped out, standing there at the pay and display machines. And people people from in town, out of town, go to those machines, and they're always there. You can go to those pay and display machines almost any time of day and find people there, and many of them are aggressive. You find them in the transportation center. So there are several problems, but I don't want to downplay what Dick has said, because I think we do have a problem. And I guess one of the things, rather than be just a complainer, what I have observed is I think that since the police department moved up to Putney Road, we don't have as many patrols in town. And I think that is having, that's a difficult thing. We don't even have officers anymore who may walk through town on their way to and from work, who sort of pass through downtown, go through the parking lots because they were present in downtown. This is where they worked. They are now in Putney Road, and they can hop on 91, and they can go to Vernon, and they can go wherever they want. I think that downtown is lacking a police presence. And I think, not that I'm looking for strict law enforcement, but I think that when you have police presence in downtown, whether they're riding their bikes like they used to, whether they're just patrolling, I think it keeps the people who have problems, we know they have problems, but who are aggressive, from congregating as much as they do. I think they just kind of feel like they just have a free hand. I mean, you can walk through the park by the co-op almost any hour of the day and see what goes on there. And so I take what you said very close to my heart, but I also want to clarify that there is an element that is far more aggressive, and maybe their needs are greater, but I've heard anecdotal stories and stories from my fellow shopkeepers about wanting to buy them coffee and have them turn down coffee, or say, come on, I'll take you to the works and buy you a bagel. They don't want that. They want money. They probably want money to buy drugs. I feel badly for them, but it's a problem. And on those few hot days we've had this week, and I've walked out in the street, there have been more panhandlers than there have been customers. And that's distressing. So I just wanted to add my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Zach, I saw you fidgeting.
Zach Corbin, I own Peter Havens. Like Don, I didn't come here today to talk about it, but while we're on the subject, it's been 5 years now that I've owned Peter Havens, and I couldn't agree with them more. I walk the beat every day from the parking garage to Peter Havens, and I've also noticed the aggressiveness. And one thing I don't understand is all the open containers. I've seen 4 or 5 people standing by the parking garage with a full beer, drinking with a paper bag. I didn't know that was legal. It doesn't seem that anybody says anything. And I've been chased down the street, you know, do you ask for money? And when you say no, you get sworn at, cussed at, and they also bother customers on the deck at Peter Havens. They'll be, you know, paying for a meal, ask for money, right? You know, the people sitting right by the sidewalk. So I've definitely noticed it as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is a touchy subject for me to respond to. So I'm going to apologize now if I cross the line or cross a boundary or mix my two hats together because it's a small town and hats get meshed together. I do know that we, the town with a capital T, are aware that there are a subset of panhandlers, mostly that are new to town, that have been more aggressive. Gunny is aware of it, and I do know that he has people that have been going out and addressing it. You know, the one thing is, like, what if a police officer spends an hour downtown addressing it and then leaves? They're gonna come right back out. I mean, there's no actual law. You can bring somebody in maybe and like talk to them, maybe book them for being aggressive, but if they're not actually assaulting somebody, there's no actual law, you know, besides you shouldn't be aggressive, and then they can't hold you for that. There's nothing to do for holding you. With the wall closing, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me because for a while I've read, you know, people's feelings that if the wall would just close, this would solve everything. They should close that down. And I've always said, well, that seems to be an interesting way to look at it. And now it's happened. And now what we're seeing is people have nowhere to congregate. So they're finding new places. It's probably going to take a couple weeks for people. People will eventually find new places to congregate, and it's not going to always be in the hot center of Main Street. But it's going to take a little while for the dust to settle on that. And in the meantime, we're going to really get a good look. I mean, some of us have already gone to those sites like the Wall or the drop-in center, and we already know the volume and the magnitude of humans. Now other people are going to see it too, and it's out there and it's everywhere, and it's not pretty. Regarding addiction, we do not currently in our system have things set up. Like, let's say right now somebody decides they want to be clean, right? They go to the retreat, the Medicaid will cover them for 3 days, put them back on the street. Anybody who Googles heroin addiction, 3 days is enough to make you dope sick, not much more. Maybe they get into the Suboxone clinic, which they walk to every day after that, but we don't really have like an urgent care for addiction. So you're either going into the retreat, which if you're on Medicaid, your insurance is not going to cover for any length of time, or maybe you're getting shipped off to these treatment centers, and even those are only a couple week stints unless you're lucky enough to get a bed into a more long-term place. We currently if you want like the flat out truth, we don't have it. You can't arrest him for being addicted. The system does not exist. So right now, until something happens with a new clinic or something a little more creative that's actually happening in the system where we can bring people and actually detox them through the different phases of detox, which can take at least a month, this is what we're looking at. People will go in, they'll stay on the street as long as they can till they're really, really sick. They'll check themselves in for a little while. The insurance will kick them out. They'll go back on the street. They'll stay clean as long as they can. They'll use again. They'll stay out till they're really, really sick. Blah, 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 blah. That's the cycle. Nothing that can be done about that. Police are doing what they can about the aggressive panhandling, but I mean, we're talking about a lot of people. This is a lot of people. It's not like 10 guys downtown. I mean, you all heard the groundwork saying 150 people came through the SOS last winter. They did not just all magically get housed and pop off the radar. It's a big problem. And there are organizations that are working on it. There are also groups that have spun off that include, Community Justice Center and Groundworks and parts of the DBA and new groups that are forming right now, currently, because we know this is an issue and we've been addressing it backwards and it doesn't work. But it's not going to be quick. It's not going to be fast. It's not going to satisfy everybody. That's what I know. And I'm not sure how many boundaries I just blurred there by saying that, but I felt like I had knowledge and I wanted to say knowledge. So I will give the floor to whoever else might want it.
A couple of things to say. I think we spent a lot of time and a lot of meetings last year talking about this, and many of you were here for the process. And we talked about signs and police patrol and public phone numbers and all kinds of support. And one of the things that became really clear is that this is, as Esther said, a long-term problem. And it's going to require a community effort to do it, and to try and do a little patchwork thing to eliminate the problem on Main Street isn't going to work, first off, and it's not going to make any difference or have any positive effect. And Brandy mentioned a couple of the organizations that are currently working to try and contribute to helping with the relieve some of the problem. There's a organization, I think they're meeting right now at the co-op, an organization with the intention of getting a group of people who are skilled in human services or in supportive activities to be available to help for people that have various needs. And it's also we had the groundworks people were here a couple weeks ago, and they talked about the development or the transition of what we had talked about in terms of a day jobs program into a more comprehensive approach that would work with youth services, probably Voc Rehab and Department of Labor and other organizations to try and get similar to what social service agencies and what the schools try to do, which is provide wraparound services for people to actually help them become independent and not have these needs. So I think that there's a great deal of activity going on. I think that the point that's most meaningful, again, is what Essler said about being a national problem. It's huge. It's not something that is going to be solved easily. There are lots of efforts going on. I think we haven't talked about it in a while, and then winter happens and it's not as much of a problem, but now it's the season again. And I think we probably should. I'm not sure that going through what we went through last time and trying to come up with more ideas for sort of immediate town responses is the best way to go. I think maybe contacting some of these the organizations that are working on this and seeing if a community-wide meeting would somehow help, or if there would be some way of coordinating activities, some system of coordinating activities, which is what the group that's meeting tonight, I think, is talking about. We clearly understand it takes the whole community. And we clearly understand that it's not a simple thing and it's going to be a long time. And we're really deeply, as a community, we're deeply involved in it. I think maybe the town almost less so because so many organizations have taken it over, but the chief is still out there with the task force. And I imagine that he's doing everything in terms of, and the police department is doing everything in terms of patrolling that they can do, given the rest of the things that they're responsible for and the limitations of not being fully staffed. But at any rate, it's not something that we've ignored. We haven't talked about this year, and Dick, I appreciate your coming in and bringing it up because I was not aware. Somebody who was very active last year in pushing for responses came up to me at the farmers market a couple weeks ago and said, oh, it's way better. And as far as what I see when I'm in town, it's not. I don't see the streets full of people the way you do, but you're there every single day. I'm there twice a week, maybe. So we will probably get this on the agenda or ask Peter to give us some comments about or some thoughts about how to proceed and see what else there is we can do as the town. But I just want to reemphasize that there's an incredible amount of activity going on, and huge number of people that are spending a lot of time trying to make a difference in this case.
I would love to piggyback on what you both are saying. Because there's an idea that occurred to me while talking to a friend a couple of weeks ago about what could be some very creative solutions. And one of the things she said was that she called the retreat just about therapy or counseling or something. And the first thing they wanted to ask was whether or not she had insurance, which is like, just an immediate stopper right there in terms of how someone would get help. Then we started talking and sharing ideas on what's happening currently in Brattleboro. And I would love to know who the group is, because I want to propose something that may, the whole idea of a police presence is great, especially in terms of community officers. But I think in addition to that, they're not social workers, they're not, people who are, which, would put that on them. But I think it also would be very important if there could be a beat of, not to call them therapists, but counselors or people who are, and so I have some thoughts about that, and I would love to get more information behind the scenes. And
I'll send you some stuff.
yeah. No, I would love to
A
know
couple
more.
people from the Compassion Committee are at that meeting.
Yeah, no, that would be great to just know more about that, and I'd love to pitch something.
Okay, any other, Isler? And then we'll,
Again, my name is Esler. I'll try to be quick. I'm super happy that we're having this conversation. This is really good. This is how healing looks like. And yeah, we don't have a thing now. We don't. And there is so much things people are doing, and I'm hearing it all the time. I'm listening, interviewing people at the shelter, and like knowing about the food shelter where people are going there and eating food. Families that are struggling, right? It's like, it's great, we're doing that great. It's like, how do we do more of that? How do we get excited? How do we as a community do that excitement thing of healing each other, right? Because we all want good things we want people to go to Peter Havens, right? We want to enjoy your flowers that you put it's beautiful. Thank you so much. I see you doing the work, and it's like, yes, let's do more of that work. So yes, as a community, let's do that. And again, I'm excited for how we're gonna heal this. Because it's not about putting more officers in the streets, because they're not social workers. We need people that can focus on people. We need to trust people. If we trust people, people become trustworthy. So we need to do that. We need to trust that people want to do the best, and I think that's what we all want. So thank you for all your comments, and thank you for doing the work.
thanks. Does anybody else have a comment on this or any other item in mind that is not on tonight's agenda? Okay. Well, Stephanie.
I want to more strongly echo, I think, what I was hearing of your sentiments, that the select board did a great job last year of naming basically 3 groups that need to come together and work on this issue. And it really came from the town, saying that these are the 3 steps, and all the projects that you've named right now came out of those 3 original groups. So whether it is the town going out with trained therapists, volunteering, that came from you all. Yep. And then the facilitate group that you're talking about, that came from the group that has been meeting for over a year now.
That's right.
Discussing these issues, and then it has turned into a community-wide conversation. The meeting was yesterday.
That's right.
And getting all those organizers trained and ready to have a community organization. So I think that it's really great work that we're all doing, and also that came originally from you over a year ago.
Appreciate that, Stephanie. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move us to putting on our liquor commissioner's hat. Need a motion for that? Move to convene as liquor commissioners. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. It's always weird when there's just 2 of us. Okay, so the first order of business that we have tonight is a second-class liquor license for the Black Pearl LLC, doing business as Peter Havens Restaurant. We have Zach here, and Peter, did you want to have comments before?
Sure, I'll just introduce this by saying it's been fully vetted, as these things are before they get to you. So it's my standard remarks about a liquor license. Things that aren't all in order don't get brought up for your action. So the paperwork's in order, the review's been conducted, staff recommends approval, and Zach Corbin is here to advise you about what he plans to do.
Great. You can sit at the table or stand at the microphone, whenever your pleasure.
I think I was here roughly a year ago about the expansion, and the front portion of our private dining room or catering wing of the restaurant. Jasmine was running at Jasmine's Bakery, and sadly it's been a year and she's decided to close. because she's pregnant and she just didn't feel like it was a lot of work. So, anyways, so we have that spot. It's a beautiful spot. As you know, there's big windows there right on the street. It's already set up for retail. So my vision, think micro North End butcher. So a very tiny gourmet shop that represents Peter Havens, or it's the same company. But if you go into the restaurant and you really like a beer, you really like a wine, you can say, well, tomorrow, the store's open next door and you can purchase a bottle of wine.
Nice.
So I have to call the Department of Agriculture, I believe, to sell meat, but we have a very small display cooler. So some vacuum-packed, Vermont meats that we already serve in the restaurant. Like I said, a very small selection of beer and wine. Some of our bread that's made for the restaurant, this local guy, Gilles, French bread, a little bit of cheese, a small gourmet shop. That's the vision.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Very nice. Any questions on the board or comments on the board?
I have a question. And this is something that's been mentioned to me by a couple of store owners that I know, in just terms of how do we maintain, because downtown is ever changing in terms of, businesses that come and then businesses that unfortunately go for whatever reason. So I'm very curious, in terms of what your thinking is in terms of keeping the going, which first of all sounds amazing, but I'm always very curious about that because, things turn over, things happen. So that's my question.
I think just keep it interesting. I didn't mention I'm going to have a small sandwich unit in there, so do a couple really nice sandwiches and then maybe, start out slow. This is the very busy time of year for us with catering and everything. And then in the winter, more move towards like home meal replacement, like have a different, pick it up. You can get a ribeye, mashed potatoes, or a chicken to go and heat it up at your house. Or you can pick it up hot. And stuff like that.
What are your price points?
I don't know yet, but
Okay.
reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, reasonable.
This is all sounding very exciting. Any other comments or questions, David?
No, good question.
Okay. Comments or questions from the public? This sounds great. All right, so I'd be looking for a motion.
I motion to approve a second-class liquor license for the Black Pearl LLC DBA Peter Havens Restaurant at 32 Elliott Street.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very
Carried.
much.
Thanks, Zach.
Yeah.
Okay, motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to convene as water commissioners.
I was talking.
So moved.
And sewer, of course, we don't want to forget. Okay, we are convened as water and sewer commissioners. And our first item is the fiscal year 19 utilities fund budget. Peter?
So you saw this first back on May 1st, and that evening didn't have any questions or concerns that you expressed at that time regarding the actual proposed budget. We spent a good bit of time. You remember that Steve Barrett, who's here again this evening, presented, not quite line by line, but certainly function by function, what's in the proposed budget, and then we went over the capital improvement plan part of it. So what's back before you tonight for approval is that same budget, but what you did ask for back in the initial consideration was a summary for the utility fund that would look more like what you're used to seeing now for the general fund budget that we bring forward in the fall and work through together during the winter months. And so we took a stab at that, and as I said in the cover memo for this item, if you have feedback for us about how we can make this more useful to you, we'd love to hear that. We can either hear it tonight or I can hear it from you outside of this meeting, and we can work towards improving this for the future. In this first cut at it, you'll see that it's more complicated than what we bring you related to the general fund because the accounting in this fund is more complicated. Since it is an enterprise fund, it's the full accrual form of accounting, and so what we see here is depreciation shown in a way that has a very significant impact on this budget that isn't even shown for the general fund assets, and a need to show certain off-budget outlays, those specifically regarding capital cash outlays and the principal repayment on debt within this utility fund as adjustments that need to be shown because, again, in the full accrual form accounting, those are shown as non-budget entries. So what we've got before you as the page that's attached to the memorandum is our best effort to make that, simplify that as best we can, make it as clear as possible. And the bottom line that it comes to is that in the budget a year ago, we were proposing a drawdown of about $1.5 million from this fund. And in this year's budget, we're proposing an additional drawdown of about $400,000. And so there's a note at the bottom that reassures you that that drawdown is from a balance that at one time was up around $6 million. And then there's, cash in and cash out that's gone on since then. So what we discussed when we were discussing rates and the overall health of this fund back on May 1st was that there was slightly over $4.5 million of cash in the fund, and there is. I wanted to reiterate that these drawdowns are, you're going to see those cyclically. Sometimes we're drawing down, sometimes we're replenishing. In this particular 2-year period, when you're seeing this chart for the first time, we're in a period of drawdown, but not in a way that would destabilize the longer-term perspective for the utility fund. So with that explanation, I would just ask that you give me some feedback when you're ready to on how this, whether this is useful or whether you'd like to see something different. And we would ask that you take an action this evening to approve the budget as proposed.
I actually think it's closer to what I would like to see. I'd be curious to hear what fellow board members, and thank you for the work and the explanation of the challenge with the way that the accrual is calculated and how that played in. Do you have any feedback yet on the layout?
This is fine. It's really complex,
Yes.
and particularly when we're projecting out with a new water plant and how much money we can save and financing and all of that. And I know that I'm pretty sure that at the end of this year, this coming year, we have to redo the whole ordinance or
That is correct.
whatever. So
Yes.
we're going to need a really serious primer on how that all works because we're going to be looking for another 5-year plan. And this plan has had an increase every single year and a pretty nice balance, but there's also a really good reason for that. But anyway, so I just want to, this year, I'm happy to pass this and be on our way, but we're going to be really busy around utility at the end of the year.
The only thing I wanted to add, which is related to utilities, but not specifically to this budget, a couple of constituents approached me because they're interested in just learning more about our water system, and as I need to learn more about it, but like in terms of how fragile is it, how can we make it safer, what are some of the challenges or dangers. So I just want to just put that out there, that I'm sure in upcoming conversations that there could be some opportunity just to educate the public around those things, like in terms of what do we need to know about our water system and how we can all, participate in keeping it safe, keeping it functional.
So maybe sometime in the fall, after we've got quite a crush of things that we're lining up for the next couple of months here.
Absolutely.
But
No,
as we
of
get into
course.
the fall, maybe we can make a priority of getting ahead of the utility fund discussion that's going to be really important to us when we get about 8 or 9 months out and we get preparing for next year's adoption. Your point is exactly right, that we're going to have to look really hard at rates. We're going to get some consultant assistance to run that model and look at some different options of not only how it affects the rates, but our capital investment decisions, capital improvement decisions. So we'll be looking at all that together in the winter months. It might be good in the early fall to have a time when we actually come in and have Steve describe the system and challenges to the system, as well as things that have been recently improved in the system, and kind of set the groundwork for that fuller discussion about the finances in the winter.
I think that would be very smart of us.
Just one other thing. So I know periodically we get reports on the water quality, and every time I see one, it's A+. And it's really great. But Steve, how often do we get that report? And has there ever been anything less than pretty much perfect?
The water quality report is issued every year.
Just once a year?
Once a year. And it's a report on the previous year. So it's kind of the report card for the water system. And Brattleboro Water Department does have good water, and we have good reports because of that.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Is the board prepared to pass this budget this time? Yep.
I'll move it and we'll see.
All right. It's on the edge of our
I move that
seats.
we approve the proposed FY19 utility fund budget as presented.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Great, and the next topic, Peter, looks like the wastewater treatment plant.
Right, so Steve can provide a more complete description of this if you need it, but basically we've got a part of our wastewater plant that has failed. It's a proprietary system, so we need to go to this one company to do the repair. We've gotten a quote from them that we think is fair. It's before you this evening. We do want to flag that it's an estimate, so if the hours and parts that they use in the actual repair exceed this, then we'll be paying a bit more. It's possible that they might come in under and we pay a little bit less, but this is the estimate that we have in hand.
So I'm here to, if you have any further questions, but what this does is it takes wastewater once it's been treated, the effluent water before it goes into the river. That water is recycled into a separate system for wash down, process, tank cleaning, also heating and cooling, the biosolids press. So that all that water is recycled and reused within the facility itself, and it saves millions of gallons of fresh drinking water a year because we're using this recycled water. The system's automated, it has a computer system. Different devices require more gallons per minute, and so it's a fairly sophisticated pieces of equipment. And it appears that we might have had either a lightning strike or a power surge. It protected a majority of the equipment, but hence we did have a problem with the computer. So that's what the system's about. We think it's essential. It saves thousands of dollars a year. So we're recommending that we accept the bid or the price proposal. And as Peter said, there could be some changes, greater or less, from Gustavo Preston Company for $15,825.
Great, thank you for that. Questions from the board? No. Questions from the public? And I noticed I forgot to ask that a couple times. I'm not usually chair. Feel free to say, you forgot to ask if we have a question, and I will totally acknowledge you. Any questions about this topic? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I would like to put forth a motion to authorize town staff to apply for, a proposal from Gustavo Preston Company of Chelmsford, Massachusetts for the repair of the recycled water control system at the wastewater treatment plant in the estimated amount of $15,825, with the understanding that the final cost of this work will be determined by the actual parts and labor required for the repair.
All right, we have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I have received notification that Tim Wessel is stuck in traffic because there is a crash on Route 9 that was as of 7:05. While it is our practice that generally the chair does not make motions at this meeting, I am going to go ahead and make motions with you so that it's not just the two of you playing volley in case Tim doesn't show up. Although you're doing great, but I don't. Okay. So it looks like we are moving on to the Economic Development Administration Grant. Peter?
Yes, thank you. So this is one of the steps that the town has been asked to take in support of the proposed Culture Made Vermont Economic Development Project at Exit 1 Industrial Park. As we've discussed previously, there are a series of things that will occur over the next several months as long as the project keeps gaining momentum and moving forward towards what we hope will be a financial closing before the end of this year, and then moving on into actually implementing the project beginning next year. And as long as it stays on track for that, we'll be back to see you again periodically to ask for additional actions, none of which will actually finally commit the town to spending money within the utility system or otherwise in support of the project unless the project actually moves forward. So that's a question that's been asked. I know when these items have been considered in the past, you and members of the public have wanted the reassurance that we're not committing to, for instance, in the case of the item we're going to talk about tonight, expanding the utility system and then maybe not have the project move forward. So what we're actually looking at here is the way in which the utility system in the southern part of town would need to be expanded to support this project if the project does indeed go forward. And based on the engineer's advice for how that ought to be accomplished, there's a potential for the town to receive half of the funding from the Economic Development Administration of the federal government. So what's before you tonight is not the final decision about implementing the improvements, but rather authorizing staff to apply for the grant so that if it all moves forward in the way that we hope it will, we'll be in a position to only have to pay half of the cost. The amount of the grant would be $420,000, and the amount of the improvement is estimated to be $840,000.
So this is big money. You should make this motion.
Fantastic. I will. And I will clarify that if at any point any of this moves forward, there'll be lengthy public discussion and opportunities for public participation as well as discussion by the board at length. Okay. That being mentioned, I will make up a motion because I can't find mine. No, thank you. I will move to authorize town staff to apply for a grant from the U.S. Economic Development Administration in the amount of $420,000 to help pay for improvements to the town's water and sewer systems related to the proposed Culture Made Vermont project. Note again the word proposed. Okay. Motion is on the table. All those in favor? Oh, wait, public participation. Would anybody like to ask a question? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Peter. All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners.
So moved.
Thank you. And we now move into unfinished business.
And did we get a vote on that last one?
Oh, yeah, can we have a vote? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
You know, it's amazing how clueless how much we rely on our chair.
I tell you.
To know what
She's
they're
good,
doing.
keeping everybody in line. Okay, so moving into unfinished business, the first thing that we are going to be discussing would be parking matters and talking about a schedule for considering capital improvements and discussing parking study items.
So in the last two select board meetings, there have been fairly lengthy discussions about aspects of this coming out of the parking improvement study for the downtown that was completed earlier this year. So at the last meeting, what you agreed is you wanted to have us bring back a schedule for how you could consider taking action on some of these elements in bite-sized pieces and a more manageable task than trying to kind of look at all of it at once. And so to look at it in a more orderly manner, personally, I did. I don't know what you were expecting. I was expecting that it might take 3 or 4 meetings to space these pieces out and deal with them, have enough information on each one. But Patrick Moreland, who prepared the memorandum that's before you, has done some legwork. He's done it together with Stephanie Bonin from the DBA and with others who've been interested in this topic, and actually feels as though there's 2 separate clusters of actions that kind of fit together well, and they also align well with the amount of knowledge that we already have and the amount of knowledge that we're still attempting to gain to bring to you for helping you make decisions around these different things as the summer goes along. And so we're proposing that it be addressed in just 2 meetings. If at either one of these occasions, if you approve this tonight, if on either of these other occasions you find that you don't have enough information or the matter is more complex and you want to have some more discussion, you can always defer action to another night. But we'd like to present to you on July 17th the smart meters and kiosks parking application and the financing options for capital improvements, the downtown, the Brattleboro Transportation Center repairs, and the downtown bicycle parking package. We'd like to address that with you on July 17th. And then on August 7th, the painting and lighting in the Brattleboro Transportation Center, the shared parking agreements for the use of parking lots by one group of people during the daytime, a different group of people after dark, pricing adjustment that may be either strategically desirable or may become necessary in order to fund the capital work within the parking system, and off-hours signage and improved parking information for the public.
Now, if I'm not going to be at those meetings, how should I participate? I guess we can figure this out offline.
Or if you know that there's one of those that you don't think you're going to be able to attend and you want to be able to participate in both, then this would be the time to work with your colleagues to decide whether we want to approach them on a different schedule.
Yeah, no, I don't want to hold up the process.
Okay.
You sure?
I'm positive.
Yeah, okay.
No, I know
You can just
how.
write us about your preferences.
Yeah, you
and
can
we have
always,
it.
let us
That'd be
know
great.
with memo or whatever.
Yeah, I'll do that. Perfect.
And we can even read it,
Yeah.
at the meeting or something.
Yeah, of course. Perfect.
I've done that.
And then there's one thing I'd like to mention. I can either mention it now or I can mention it after you act on the schedule, but about something that we're going to move forward with unless you tell us to stop or slow down. We're going to move forward with one element of this without further action from the board. You want me to address that now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please.
So there's something called a parklet, which can be used for things other than bicycle parking, but we'd like to use it for bicycle parking. And what it is taking parking spaces and converting them into little micro parks. And it's being used all across the country in different ways. Sometimes it's for beautification, sometimes it's a place for people to sit, it might have an umbrella over it or something. In our case, we think it's a really good alternative for providing more bicycle parking in the downtown because we're otherwise going to struggle with our historical downtown and the width of our sidewalks. We're going to struggle to find a place that's appropriate to add bicycle parking in the center of Main Street. And so Stephanie is, I believe, the one who made contact with Montpelier. Somehow we learned that Montpelier has available a parklet that they're willing to part with for $2,000, where the town would pay $1,000 out of our parking fund, and the DBA will raise the money for the other $1,000 that'll enable us to bring this here, place it. It's exactly the size of one parking space on Main Street. We'll put it in place for the summer months. It'll be safe during the part of the year when we're not plowing snow out of that area. It'll provide several additional bike parking spaces right there on the main street, and have some beautification with it as well. And then it's a relatively easy for me to say, Steve is gone, but for a public works crew to lift this thing up and take it away in the fall and then bring it back and install it again in the spring is not that cumbersome a piece of work in order to accomplish a really significant gain for us in the downtown amenities. So we intend to proceed in the manner that I've just described with the cost sharing and to implement this as soon as we can, which might result in it being on Main Street before you discuss these other matters.
I think it's brilliant. I noticed there's a pump on this picture. Maybe one of our downtown bike businesses wants to put a pump out there and slap their logo on it. That might be exciting.
And the flower box.
I like that idea. I think this is great.
Would this show up on the camera?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
TV?
It'd be hard.
Yeah, I think we could probably try to attach it, send it to Chris or something. Mr. DeGray has a question.
My question with the bicycles parked downtown. I don't get to park my car in the most convenient space when I want to go to a store, and sometimes I have to walk a considerable distance. And it seems like people with bicycles attach them to every pole, tree, and I can't remember, so you'll have to refresh my memory. Is there any ordinance that says that you cannot attach your bike, chain it to a parking meter or a tree or any other post downtown?
I don't know whether there's such an ordinance, but we all can agree that if there is one, it is not a high priority for enforcement.
Sure, and I get that. I mean, we have numerous ordinances that don't get enforced vigorously, but if we're going to take a most valued parking space on Main Street, which there might be some pushback when the most coveted spots are on Main Street in the Harmony lot, maybe you should consider one of the side streets for that. I don't know, that'll be a topic for discussion on July 17th. But I also know that if we should be doing something about where people park their bikes for their convenience, I'm surprised that the tree committee has never really complained about people wrapping their bikes up to trees. And we have several new trees downtown, and and people that use the parking meters, people have difficulty accessing the meters because of bikes. So I'm a big fan of bikes, but they're strewn all over, and so if this is going to be a process, then we should work to make sure that we're going to utilize these spaces if we're going to take valued parking away.
Great, thank you for that. Peter?
So you mentioned the Harmony lot and other locations that are a little further away, and I want to make clear that we don't think this solves downtown bike parking. We think this is a really low hanging fruit first step to take, and an appropriate one based on the feedback that we got during the parking study. So one of the things that in the survey of the public regarding parking in downtown Brattleboro that came out really strong was that in between the co-op and the north end of Main Street, there's just not much in the way of bicycle parking. And so we do see bikes attached to anything folks can find a place to attach to. So we expect under the other item in here, downtown bicycle parking for July 17th, we expect to be addressing more comprehensively how, in ways that are not so immediately convenient right there on Main Street, there is the ability to address this even further in the parking lots or in other ways that are still in the downtown area. And possibly, another idea or two that might relate to Main Street, but require some consideration that you would give to some trade-offs as a select board. But we see this one as being one vehicular parking space that's going to allow, a number of different bicycles to attach to it, take some pressure off of all that random bike parking that occurs now, and in a way that the public has asked for out of the parking study. So,
Great.
okay.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth McLaughlin from Brattleboro. As a planner, I think it's a great idea for this spot parking idea. I've seen it, I've read about it across the country, and I think it's particularly nice that it's right there on Main Street because it's very visible, and we want to make a big splash, and also it would reduce some vehicle parking. So I think it's a win-win project.
Great, thank you for that. Any other, Stephanie?
Stephanie Bowden, Downtown Brattleboro Alliance. I just wanted to amend and give credit. The fundraising will be done by V-Bike, DBA, BCAT, and Tiny House Fest all together.
Great.
Goodness.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks to all.
Gonna make a lot of money.
Tim Wessel has just let me know that he would like everybody to know that he is not just slacking off in traffic, he's actually actively listening and frothing at the mouth. So I'm passing that along. Are there any further comments on this particular bike parking discussion? Okay. I think we have to wait for Shanta to come back to be able to.
Actually, you don't have to take an action on that item unless you wish to tell us to do something different than what I've described.
No, I like what you've described personally.
Great, thank you.
Oh, what's that, Shanta? Shanta, do you like this proposal, the way that it's laid out with the topics at July 17th, the topics at August 7th, and then just moving right ahead with the parklet for the bike parking as it's put out in the memo?
I do, and I'll be sending a memo since I will not be at those meetings.
Okay, great. Excellent, thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. The next matter of unfinished business that we have in front of us tonight is a resolution for the aerial ladder truck financing, which we all know has been an ongoing topic. Peter.
So, as I described in the memorandum for your backup, this is belt and suspenders. The authority that you had previously provided to me was sufficient for the town's purposes for me to go ahead and execute all of the paperwork for this, to proceed with taking this loan for $500,000 from the savings and loan and proceeding with the purchase. However, in the preparation of the loan paperwork for the savings and loan, the attorneys have spoken with each other about some additional documents that are part of demonstrating for IRS, to the IRS's satisfaction that these are indeed tax exempt this is tax-exempt municipal borrowing in the same way that it would be if we were issuing bonds. We wouldn't issue bonds for such a small amount, so we're taking a note. But there's similar documentation that is put together for that. One of the items in that additional set of documents related to the tax exemption is for you to adopt the resolution that's before you this evening, which makes some statements about the borrowing that we're doing, and then authorizes me again to execute the documents on behalf of the town.
Great. Are there any questions on the board about the need for this resolution for Peter to execute loan documents? As you mentioned, it's basically just due diligence for the IRS, but any questions? Any questions in the public about this? Kind of just semantics. Do I need to read this resolution?
No, you do not.
Oh, that's great. Excellent. Good news all around. Okay. I do need a motion for it, though. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I can make a motion.
Awesome.
I'm making a motion to approve resolution authorizing capital improvement borrowing as proposed.
Okay, there is a motion on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent, motion carries. We now move on to new business, and we will dive into the financial report, monthly report for May from the Finance Department, prepared by Finance Director John O'Connor. Take it away, John.
Randy. Included in your packet is the May financial report, and we are, believe it or not, 11 months into the fiscal year.
Woo.
So it's flying by.
There we go.
We got 10 days left in the fiscal year.
No pressure.
We're at 91.7% of the general fund expenditure budget, or that's where we should be. And let me see here. And we're actually at 87.9% of the budget. So we're under, where we should be after 11 months. And after we make the prorations that we make every month, we'd be down to 86.8%. So again, we're having a good year. We expect to have a smaller deficit than we envisioned when we started the year, and we budgeted for that. The utilities fund were at 92.1%, and the parking fund was at 92%. So basically, both those funds are really very close to where they should be. And if we do the proration for insurance and interest expense in the utility fund, that would bring it down to 91%, so just slightly below the 91.7. Solid waste is at 86.1 for revenues and 87.6 for expenditures. And that basically are the revenues and expenditures through the month of April. May's revenues and expenditures, the bulk of them won't be booked until June. The loan report shows that we had $4,446,599 in outstanding loans. 4 loans had payments that were overdue, and 2 loans are in default and fully reserved. The program income report shows that we had $449,356 in available funds for additional grants and loans as of the end of May. And then finally, the grant report contains various information on 49 active grants and 16 grants that are currently in the application process. So if you've got any specific questions on any of the financials or any of the other reports, I'll certainly try to answer those questions for you.
I have a question, and maybe this is just me being new to the process. Can you explain, can you explain the loans that are overdue?
Yeah, let's look at the report. And the loan report is the report that follows all the financial reports. It's the first report after the various financials. Okay, so you can see under the rental housing, we have a rental housing loan, and one of those loans has a current balance of $1,560, and she's behind on that by 7 payments. She got behind at one point in time. She continues to make payments, so, you know, it's a pretty small amount, and she is paying every month. She just got behind, and she's staying there. The second one is a payment that's 4 months late, and the one following. These are both the same individual. They're with the same individual. One is 4 months late, the other is 5 months late. And Peter, I don't know, you probably have a little bit more knowledge on that one than I do, so if you'd like to speak to that.
Sure. These relate to a industrial use property where there's a number of different creditors.
Okay.
The state was involved in loaning some money to this project, and the local banks are, and the town. And so everybody is working together. The owner is trying to get the property sold, actually, and is in the process of doing that, and expects to be able to make good to the creditors upon the sale of the property. The details of that are very much unconfirmed at this point.
And then the last one that's late is is late 2 months, and they have caught up since then.
Great.
So they are current.
Awesome. Okay. Are there further questions on John's report? Thank you for that, John.
John, is there anything, we've got a lot of prorated, what's the right word? And the insurance payments, and at least no payments if prorated were reduced. Is there anything big left that we're going to have to pay in the next 10 days that will?
You know, we always get invoices coming in
course,
July and August for various things. I don't think there's anything really huge. I mean, all of the bond payments have been made, all of that type of thing that, you know, are large payments. All of the insurance payments have been made. So there's nothing really large that's going to be hitting, but we
So it
will
looks like
continue to receive bills.
We're going to end with a decent little surplus.
We could, yes, we could definitely.
That would be nice.
We've recently looked at that together, and this is our best guess at
This point.
where we're not even to the end of the fiscal year, say nothing of, you know, those additional bills that need to come in and that sort of thing. So we'll have good information for you by August to share. But our educated guess is that we're going to come in at about $500,000 better than budget, which means we won't we won't draw down the fund balance as much as we had planned to, and the lion's share of that. That amount, that $500,000 amount that will be to the good compared to budget, is in the health insurance program in the HRA layer, because we have to budget conservatively, and then when we don't spend as much of that layer, that returns to fund balance. So we'll go over that piece of it as well as the bigger picture with you in great detail when we have that in August.
That made me think of something, just if it's really not a difficult thing to do, it'd be fascinating to track that particular thing over a number of years.
Absolutely.
To have some data to look at this, not just so we can anticipate, but so that other people that are considering doing that, we can show that other institutions, we can show that actually you don't spend.
We absolutely will. In fact, it's critical that we do that. As we have used it over these last 3 years, each year we've taken just a little bit more risk as we get more comfortable with the forecasting that the insurance folks use. We've taken a little bit more risk each year. I don't know whether we'll keep doing that or not. We'll be back to talk about insurance in the fall and budget in the fall. But in order to make good educated decisions about how much risk is tolerable, we need to be doing that multi-year look in exactly the way that you just described.
Okay. Further questions from the board for John? Questions from the public for John? I see Franz left. That threw me for a loop. It's always keeping me on my toes, that one. Okay. Thank you again for your work, John.
Thank you, Brandy.
All right, so it looks like our next item of new business is going to be a Small Business Assistant Program, SBAP, subordinate loan for True North Granola. Take it away, Peter.
So we're recommending that you approve that the town allow ourselves to be moved into second position on this loan. And actually, Dave sits on the committee and John does as well and provides advice to the committee. So I think either one of them is probably better suited than I to provide the details. But it's an unusual thing for us to allow ourselves to be moving to an even lower position.
Because we're usually at the bottom anyway.
But we are usually near the bottom. In this particular case, we were in first position, but they need to get a line of credit from the bank, and the bank insists for that they be in first position. And so the committee has recommended to you that you approve allowing us to move into second position.
If you have any questions, I have to ask John because I missed that meeting.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Well, this particular borrower has been a great borrower. They have a great business, and they've been very prompt in making all their payments. We feel there's very, very low risk in taking a second position in this case.
Excellent. John's glowing, so I'm glowing. All right. Questions? Further questions? Questions from the public about the town subordinating to Brattleboro Savings and Loan for this line of credit? Okay. I could make this motion, but I feel weird making it. Even though I don't work there anymore.
Disconnected?
Yeah.
I move that we approve subordination of the town's Small Business Assistance Program loan to Brattleboro Savings and Loans line of credit, and the filing of an amended UCC statement, accepting that the town will have a second position lien on all personal property and other assets associated with True North Granola.
Excellent. We have a motion on the table. I'm trying to draw it out for you so you can get in here.
What'd I miss?
Well, it's too late. Meeting's over. We've done all the business. Okay, so we are just finishing up the discussion on subordinating to BSNL's line of credit for True North Granola. John has stated that these are very low-risk borrowers. The town is very comfortable with this subordination, and David has just made the motion, and we are about to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Tim Wessel has now joined the meeting. Motion carries, Jan. So now we are going to move on to the item that is either going to be the first most replayed section of this meeting, or at least the second most replayed section of this meeting when people watch the playback, and that is the skate park design. And we are bringing, let's see, Peter, did you want to speak on this before anybody gets started? We've got Carol coming up to the front.
Good evening.
Hello.
So before you have my memo where you see that we had a bid opening for the design of the skate park. We've reached a pretty exciting stage for this project. The committee here has been raising a lot of money, has been very attending a lot of meetings for many, many years, and to be sitting here before you tonight to talk about the design phase is an exciting crossroads for us. So we had a bid opening on Wednesday, June 6th. We received 4 bids, ranging from $23,000 to $49,645. The unique thing about a skate park, not everybody builds skate parks. Not everybody has a skate park builder in their community. So designs came from across the country. So with that being said, we thought this might be a very challenging process. So we developed a committee that was representative of 3 members of the basic committee, myself, and the park supervisor. We set up a ranking procedure, which I also attached along with my memo. And we based, we had each item ranging from a 1 to a 5 on several different areas of criteria. 1, the compliance with the RFP, the quality of the RFP, their experience, their understanding of the project, staff availability and technical skills, ability to work with the public and the town, knowledge of Brattleboro, cost, availability, and the ability to be able to provide insurance. With doing that, the committee ranked Stantec out of Boston as the highest rank. In many cases, as I'm sitting here before you, I'm usually 99% of the time recommending low bid. This evening, I am not recommending the low bid, and the reason for that, which I stated in my memo, the Stantec has a local and regional presence. We're going to be able to see them on site on scene. With a technical project like this, I think that's very important. Their extensive cold weather experience. We're here in Vermont. We're not building a skate park in California or Florida, so or many other warm states. Their approach to the RFP was very comprehensive and direct. Their proposal was consistent across the board with in-house engineering and other services. The committee, last time around, we did work with Stantec when we were working to design the park at Crow Lot. So the town does have some experience with them. So it's for those reasons that we jumped up the ladder for one of the other companies where the committee feels comfortable moving forward and ranked very high. When I talk about the rankings ranged from 185 to 214. So 214 with Stantec. So I think that's real important, as everybody had an opportunity to weigh every single component in the criteria that we set forth in the RFP. So with that being said, I'd like to recommend to you, along with BASIC, that the bid be awarded to Stantec for $42,350.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you for all your due diligence. It's like very intensive work, and I appreciate the rating system. I like that. Any questions, comments from the board on Carol's presentation and the memo? And
It was very thorough, what you explained in terms, it answered my questions in terms of why them and not someone else. And I do agree, I think that given that we live in Brattleboro and there's Massachusetts and all these other states, it gives us a great opportunity to just build relationships within the region. So, no, you provided such thorough information. Thank you.
Thank you.
questions or comments from the public? I was trying to keep it straight,
Well, Melissa,
maybe you can pan the public and nobody's gonna know why we're laughing.
Well, Melissa is our treasurer, but that was something that I did miss this, and just pointing this out. The committee, is, as you well know, raising a lot of money, which we'll discuss in the next, item. But there is plenty of money to cover the cost of these design services.
Oh, I'm very excited. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of very excited people that are either watching right now or are going to be playing the video when it's posted to see this or reading the notes.
I'm very excited.
I am too. Okay. Who would like to make a motion?
Would you like to make a motion?
Oh gosh, I'm not ready.
Here, nope, I got it. It's right there.
Tim, you've had all night.
I'd love to make a motion to award a contract for a skate park design to the Stantec of Boston, Massachusetts. Simply Stantec of Boston, Massachusetts. Wow, I can't talk. And Burlington, Vermont, in the amount of $42,350.
Thank you, Tim. We have a motion on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Okay. The next item we have somewhere on this agenda that I used to own is the Vermont Community Foundation Spark Grant.
And it's the next $3,000 for funding this project. So we would ask you please to approve accepting and appropriating the grant.
Oh, here it is. Fantastic. Does anybody have questions about this grant? Anybody in the public have questions? Just can't even ask that. Okay, I would accept a motion.
Move that we accept and appropriate a $3,000 Spark Connecting Community Grant from the Vermont Community Foundation to help pay for design and construction of a skate park at Living Memorial Park.
All right, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. All right, looks like we are moving on to a Department of Corrections grant. Peter?
Thank you. So the Department of Corrections is the primary funder for the Brattleboro Community Justice Center. The town supports BCJC through being the fiscal agent. We keep books for them, and by providing space in this building rent-free for their offices and their counseling services and their meetings that they hold. This grant is the bulk of their income. They do raise some funds through a few other sources, but this is $150,000 a year for a 2-year grant and an amount of $300,000 from the State Department of Corrections, and we recommend your approval.
Great. Are there any questions or comments from members of the board about this grant? There are no longer members of the public, just for the viewing audience, so I'm no longer going to ask that question. I would entertain a motion for approval or denial.
I would like to put forth a motion for us to accept and appropriate a grant in the amount of $300,000 from the Vermont Department of Corrections for the Brattleboro Community Justice Center.
Excellent. We have a motion on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Our next order of business is the annual contract with Rescue Inc.
Thank you. This has been modified very slightly from last year. It's just minor wording changes. There's no substantive changes to the agreement. The way that the fees are calculated for the different member towns is there's a formula that Rescue applies, and they calculate the amount of revenue they're going to need to raise from towns as opposed to from fees for service and so on, and insurance recovery, and then they spread that around according to the formula. We in Brattleboro have been benefiting for decades from a discount that was applied to us when Rescue was in its early years, and there were some services that the town of Brattleboro was providing to Rescue that other towns were not providing. And so there was a formula created for that, separate formula created for that led to us getting an annual discount of tens of thousands of dollars. A couple of years ago, Rescue approached us and said, geez, it's been a long time, and we've looked at the situation. We don't think that the town is providing any of those services any longer. The one thing that is still being provided by the town of Brattleboro that is distinguishable from other communities is there is a tax exemption on the property that Rescue occupies. But other than that, it didn't seem that there was a good basis for the discount any longer. We looked at that carefully, did some vetting on it, checked the history on it, and agreed that it was proper for the discount to be eliminated. But at the time, it was up to in the neighborhood of $80,000, and we asked Rescue to allow us to bring that down over a period of years so that it wouldn't have that kind of an impact of half a penny or more on the town's tax rate in one given year. Rescue was fine with that. We made an agreement that was approved by the Select Board in 2016. We're about a third of the way, maybe halfway through, not quite halfway through, implementing the sequential decline of that discount. In this particular year, the amount of the discount is $40,000. So by the formula, we would have owed $280,792. Instead, the bill that is reflected, or the fee that's reflected in the agreement before you, is $240,792, and that is just slightly under $10,000 less than our $250,000 budget for these services. So for all of those reasons and the essential nature of the services provided by Rescue, we recommend your approval.
Thank you, Peter, and thanks to Rescue Inc. for the invaluable service that you provide to our communities, and also for your partnership with us in this step down of the discount. I appreciate that. I'm sure we all do. Comments and questions from members of the board on this contract? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the annual contract between the town and Rescue Inc. as presented.
Okay, thanks, Tim. We have a motion on the table. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, let's see what we're doing now. We are moving on to committee matters, starting with appointments. Okay. Looks like we are making some appointments for the, do I read them or shall we?
Yeah, sure.
Is that fine?
You
Okay.
have in your backup the list of people who have applied, and tonight we don't actually have competition. We don't have situations where there's more people applying than there are seats.
Okay.
So if you're prepared to make all of these appointments, you would just identify which people are being appointed to which committees for how long, and then could take a motion to approve it.
Fantastic. So we have Gail Kennedy Haynes being appointed to the ADA Committee for a 3-year term, and Janice M. Hall being appointed to the ADA Committee for a 3-year term as well. We have Robin Renzoni Sweetapple being appointed to the Design Review Committee. It's an unexpired term that ends in 6/2020. We have Milton Eaton, who is being appointed to the Energy Committee. This is also an unexpired term ending 6/2019. George Harvey being appointed to the Energy Committee as well for a 1-year term, and Thomas Fennell being appointed to the Energy Committee as well for a 2-year term. Any questions, comments on that? Nope. So let's move to announcing any vacancies that we have.
Well, yes, we do.
Oh, we do. I need a
So
vote.
those were nominations.
So those were the nominations.
Yes.
So
I move that we approve the new members of the committees as presented.
fantastic. We have a motion on the table to approve these new members. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries at the last minute. Let's see. And now Peter is going to read the vacancies.
So the following boards and positions have vacancies that members of the public can apply for. We appreciate it when people volunteer to provide service to the community. And if one of these interests you, please apply to the town manager's office. The Agricultural Advisory Board, the Arts Committee, the Brattleboro Housing Partnership Board of Commissioners, Cemetery Committee, Conservation Commission, Design Review Committee, alternate position, Development Review Board, alternate position, Energy Committee, Energy Coordinator, Honor Roll, Inspector of Lumber, Shingles, and Wood, Planning Commission, Senior Solutions Advisory Council, SEVCA Board, Traffic Safety Committee, and Weigher of Coal. And 2 quick notes, the SEVCA Board, the Select Board makes a recommendation, but the SEVCA Board actually makes the appointment. And for the Traffic Safety Committee, the currently vacant position is the Chamber of Commerce representative. So for that one position, rather than applying to the town manager's office, people should be in touch with the Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Peter. And I think hearing that list, it is very clear to me, and I'm sure to you as well in the listening audience, that there are several different ways to be involved in the town on several different topics for several different lengths of time. Chris Grodke, I know, is most interested in applying for the Weigher of Coal position, and I expect to see that forthcoming. Any other comments or questions from the board?
No pressure.
No? No. Okay. Please do consider serving in your community. We certainly would look forward to having more people talking about more things with us. Any further business to discuss this evening? If not, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Sorry.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn on the table. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.
I think this is record.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks for trying so hard, too.
Okay.
Never. We will never sign your papers.
Losing it.
Oh, is that still?